I am racking up some really nice crappies, and I'm just using the Forward Facing Sonar Minnow and jig, finding the weeds and casting it over a little bit of structure. And that has been the ticket. It's a really large presentation for crappie, but for some reason they're aggressive and that's what they want. So what I'm doing is finding some weeds next to some structure. We're 10 to 12 feet, and I'm casting it out and doing a slow retrieve, and I'm catching some beautiful, beautiful fish. Look at this guy. There's a lot of 12, 13 inchers and some babies mixed in. Let it fall just enough to get on top of the weeds, and then it's a fluke, which is odd, but I'm just doing a slow reel with it. I'm not really pumping it or anything, and that's been the ticket. Racking up the crappie. Got it? Got it. Here, I'm gonna take the. So for a rod and a setup, I'm using something a lot heavier than I typically would for crappie. I am using a medium fast rod. I'd usually be using a medium light Avid or ultralight from St. Croix, but in this sense, because I'm using that 1/4 ounce, I am using a medium fast. This St. Croix Avid has been really nice in this situation because with this presentation, I'm not just hooking up on crappie, but I'm actually hooking into a lot of nice bass. There's a fishy on Savvy Stone.
Go look, go look.
Fighting more like a feisty bass. Woo, big bass.
Oh, that's a big bass.
Oh, let me hold that up. Forward Facing Sonar Minnow. And walleye in the process, and so the retrieve is really nice, and I can really launch these baits with that heavier jig head. So it's just fun to be able to turn them over. It should be good for the years to come, but one encouraging sign is just seeing all the different size classes that we have today. So to work it, like I said, all I'm doing is I'm taking this setup, medium fast, medium light fast works. I'm just gonna launch it out there. Cover ground, that's all weeds. It's getting shallower to shore, all weeds. Launch it out there and then just do that slow retrieve back. You can feel these fish really picking at the edge of that bait. And then the key is to just not this is a heavy setup for a crappies, at least a crappie up north. And so the key is to really not overset the hook, but just do that slight pull. When you're gonna really jerk it, a lot of times you'll jerk this bait right out of there. The key is to just keep casting and casting when you know those fish are around. I'm not using any forward-facing sonar. I'm not using any side imaging. I just know that they're transitioning around this area here. I can detect them at times, not only catch them, but I can feel them tapping it, and I'm just casting in that general area. I'm finding these fish really, once I'm casting and casting for them, when I start detecting them, is really off some sort of structure, some sort of point, something a little bit different than the rest of the line, and that seems to be key where they're holding to right now. Water temps, oddly, right now are about 60 degrees, upper 50s to 60. Typically, I'd find them much warmer. Again, this is end of May, but this presentation will be effective, you know, late spring into early summer because it is aggressive. And despite the cooler temps, these fish seem to be pretty aggressive. Sonar Minnow does it again. Heavier jigs like this really, typically I'd be using a light from St. Croix, I'd be using one of their pan fishery lights or ultralight rods, but using this heavier bait with this medium fast rod, I'm really able to launch. And the other thing I really like is that it's very, it works really well when I hook up into those walleye and bass that would often break me on that lighter setup. With this, I can really be covered for all of it. So it's a great all-purpose bait this time of year, but highly effective when targeting crappie. So in summary, these are the tips I have right now. This is going to be effective all summer, in my opinion, but right now, late spring into summer, this is what you should do. Look for some structure along weeds. If you do not have forward-facing sonar, no problem. If you don't have side imaging, no problem. I like those things, makes it a little easier. But I am finding these fish sitting right on that edge and right on top of them next to some sort of structure, any sort of point, or even if there's a little bit of an island, peninsula, that really seems to be where these fish are congregating. They seem to be pretty thick right now, which makes this very effective. And to cover ground and find them, I'm following that weed edge. I'm casting out the forward-facing sonar jig and minnow. Like I said, it's very heavy. A lot of times I'm using it for bass and walleye fishing as well. Very versatile, but for crappie, it seems to be very effective when you're doing that slow retrieve. So Just let it fall for 1 or 2 seconds. If you're in the weeds, you let it fall too long, and then just slowly reel that bait in, and you're gonna be surprised at how many fish you can turn over when you find that perfect timing of that retrieve. That's gonna be key when catching these fish, and I think you guys will find not only that you'll catch a lot of them, but you're gonna be able to pull some of those bigger fish out of the group.